pieces in. What I was going to say, just to follow up on your point of access, I always made the argument that President Trump was the most accessible president probably we've ever had. He doesn't do as many press conferences as others, but he's almost always available on the way to Marine One. He brings the press into the Roosevelt Room, into the Cabinet Room, into the Oval Office, as you mentioned. And that level of accessibility is fantastic. What I heard from reporters was it was also exhausting.
It's exhausting.
Exhausting. And they always had to be prepared. So I did not understand this at the time. I said, well, we're giving you more access than you've ever had before. And they go, yeah, but not the access we want. And I go, what do you mean by that? And they said, we want to go in there with a list of questions that we've prepared and we're ready to go at a press conference. When we get called in at a moment's notice and have to shout over our other reporters and maybe get to ask one, yes, we have access, but we don't have the quality access, I guess, that they were looking for. And that's a difference.
But I would say that those impromptu moments are quality access.
I see it. Just a second. We have an issue here at the head table at the White House Correspondents Dinner. If we can go to that full screen, it looks like the head table has been evacuated. I saw Oz Perlman talking with Mr. and Mrs. Trump, and they are evacuating. It looks like they're taking all the security folks out of there at this point. If we could get closer, and it looks like the ballroom, I cannot see if people are still seated at their tables or not. This is the quietest I've ever seen the dinner. Can we go? We understand that shots were fired here at the dinner, and we'll find out what's going on here shortly. You can see a lot of, here come the Secret Service. Let's go in full screen here. See if we can hear. Karen Bohan, you've been a association president. What is the security? People seem to be walking out relatively calmly. Karen Bohan, you were association president. What is the security considerations like when a president arrives
the
at the Washington Hilton?
Obviously is taken very seriously, and there are meetings way in advance with the White House Correspondents Association, the Secret Service, the hotel staff. There is a lot of planning that is put into an event like this. You've got 2,600 people in that ballroom, not to mention all of the people in the hotel. I was at the venue earlier, and there were protesters outside. There was a security perimeter. In fact, it was tighter security than I've ever seen. I did notice, though, that at least 2 protesters got into the lobby, and that shouldn't have happened.
So Mike Dubke is a former Trump insider. Does the Secret Service have the last word, basically, on any travel movement?
Basically on anything that comes around any traveler movement of the president, absolutely. And they would have worked with the dinner organizers, with the hotel. This is a location in Washington, D.C. that's used every year for this event. So this is not a unusual place to hold a high-level event with a lot of security.
And I believe that they use this ballroom so often that the waiters and waitresses and et cetera all have some type of a security clearance that they can be in there and serve the president. right before this started, we saw Oz Perlman, the mentalist, talking with Mr. and Mrs. Trump. He was right there, and they were doing some cards, and it'll be interesting to see what they were talking about. But by now, it's been maybe 5 minutes since this shutdown. Is the president back at the White House by now, do you think?
If
knowing
not knowing any of the threats here, but I've got to believe that they would have removed the president from the scene. That's part of the protocol.
Yeah, they took him off the stage. So, it kind of changes the mood of what we're all about to talk about tonight. We don't have any updates at this moment. We do have the dinner. You can see that the ballroom is still full, and as we sit here and watch, we'll absolutely stay live, and we will also take your calls. And we're going to put the numbers up on the screen very briefly, and I'll read them out loud as well. So if you want to call in, talk to us about what is happening, 202 is the area code, 748-8001 for Republicans, 748-8000 for Democrats, 748-8002 for independents. Karen Bohan, you mentioned that you were at the Hilton earlier, meeting with colleagues, and got into the venue. What was the security for you to get through the perimeter? Because it's not just a hotel; they set up a perimeter now, don't they?
They set up a perimeter. They were checking tickets, and you were only supposed to be allowed in if you were a guest.
And if somebody got a ticket, a protester got a ticket, then they could make it in at least to the hotel, correct?
Yeah.
Could they make it into the ballroom? Because we're talking magnetometers. And we have somebody on the phone now who works for the Washington Hilton. I apologize. Malika Hall, who is attending the dinner, is a C-SPAN employee. Hey, Malika, what's going on? What do you got?
Hi, I'm in the room right now. Originally, a lot of people were under tables. We're now all standing up and looking around. All of the secretaries and the president has been removed from the room. I'm not exactly sure what happened. All we heard was yelling and being Secret Service, and yes, I'm okay. Thank you. And then Secret Service running on tables, and luckily I have C-SPAN employees near me, just reassuring me that we're all okay. But yeah, President Trump obviously has been removed from the room.
Hey, Malika, were you close? This is Peter. Were you close enough to see the Secret Service take Mr. and Mrs. Trump out?
I was close enough, but I was under the table, so I did not see it firsthand.
Really? What made you? Was there a noise? Were there loud noises? Did it sound like shots?
I did not hear any shots. You just heard yelling and just commotion, like someone yelling through the room, or maybe someone came in. I'm really not sure what happened.
And did somebody tell you to duck, or did you just instinctively get under the table?
I instinctively got under the table, and other people were getting under the table as well, so it seems like the common thing that was recommended to do.
Hey, Malika, how far from the stage are you right now? From the head table?
Maybe a couple yards. I'm very close to, I'm maybe 2 tables away from the stage.
And
I was very close.
Has the stage been emptied? Is everybody that was at the head table, including Weijia Zhang of CBS,
The entire stage is empty. Yes, everyone from the stage is gone.
Okay, it was weird. Malika, we were sitting here, here with Karen Bohan and Mike Dubke.
I want him to call into the control room and get on the air from this room.
I'm doing that right now.
Yeah. Malika?
I want John
Yes, hi.
to do a phoner.
Okay, we have John here who could also
Is
speak.
John McCardle there? Great, let me talk to John.
He's here, right here.
Thanks, Malika.
Okay.
Hey, John, it's Peter. You're on the air. And
Hey,
how
Peter.
close were you to the stage when this occurred,
Peter,
whatever
we're
this event
about,
was?
Peter, we're about 4 tables back from the stage. and there's just a lot of confusion about what's going on. So I'll give you the sequence of events. Everybody's having their salads. Boom, 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 boom was what I heard.
And John, did they sound like shots, or was it just loud
back
noises?
to the back of the room. At that point,
John, you with us? Darn, I can imagine all the self-service going on there. Karen Bohan, what'd you hear in that conversation? We'll hopefully get John back.
So obviously, the guests in that room were very afraid. It's unclear, what the loud noises were. But as I was saying, Peter, there was a breach of security to some degree, because I did see some protesters.
And did that strike you as odd that they were in the hotel?
So not only were they in the hotel, but they were on the red carpet. There's an upstairs red carpet where guests can go and get their picture taken. And there were two protesters there that had signs saying, "Arrest Pete Hegseth," and they were yelling for an extended period of time. I was surprised that they weren't removed more quickly. And I was also surprised that they got in with those signs.
Mike Dubke, give us some thoughts on what
frankly,
we've been talking about here.
Given the level of security at any event in Washington D.C. and the individuals that were at this event, for the most part, I've got to believe that the majority of them go through magnetometers almost on a daily basis.
Yeah.
So to hear that there were protesters there for a long period of time, that is very surprising. But these events are generally locked down fairly tight, and people arrive hours early to get to their table, to get in line and to get through. So again, all of this, especially in Washington, and not being outside in a place where you might have local police or others who aren't used to this. This is a very controlled situation.
Yeah, and we can see that everybody's remaining in the ballroom. All the guests are remaining in the ballroom. And John McArdle, who's at the dinner, and everybody is saying there were loud sounds. So not confirmed to be shots, but loud sounds, and that initiated this, what happened here. Hopefully at some point we'll be able to re-rack where we were in the tape and be able to look at exactly the sequence of events. Again, Oz Perlman was talking with Mr. and Mrs. Trump at the head table. They were having, some kind of a, whether it was a trick or not that he was doing, I don't know. And then all of a sudden, all hell broke loose. And I think we all saw the Secret Service running across those front tables. And it sounds like the cabinet, the Pete Hegseth, Marco Rubio's, the Sean Duffy's, who are all there as well, have been evacuated, and no activity at this point at the head table, including all the journalists. So hopefully somebody will come out and give us an update of what happened.
So Peter, the layers of security at the event tonight, as I said, a couple of protesters did get into the lobby, but even if you got into the lobby, to get down to the ballroom, you would have to show your ticket to go down the escalator, and then you would go through magnetometers.
And now we have some folks coming back. Whether or not they're straightening the chairs. All right. I can't tell if those are Secret Service or if they're journalists.
No, and this is only a speculation on my part that they're holding everyone in the room until they can make a decision as to whether or not they've gotten control of the situation or not. So that none of this seems, after these major events, this.
And we will try to get John McArdle at the dinner back on the line, or somebody from C-SPAN to hopefully give us an update. The fact that everybody's still in the room says quite a bit, I guess, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
Well, especially a room full of journalists who want to go out and report what just happened. So
exactly.
I'm sure they're being held there by the service, and
well, we'll keep an eye on that front table as well. So this is a first.
It is a first.
Yeah, this is never happened before, I don't think, in the history of the dinner.
No, not to my recollection. But you know, this is indicative of a level of political violence that we've seen the uptick of, and so you know, unfortunately, I'm not sure anyone in that room is surprised.
Hey, John McCardle, our C-SPAN colleague who was at the dinner. You are back on the line. John, you were going to walk us through the sequence of events. Go.
Yeah, Peter, we were sitting here having dinner. They were serving a salad, and suddenly boom, 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 four is what I heard from the back of the room. Everybody immediately just trying to figure out what's going on. When I look back to the front of the room, the Secret Service and the long guns and the military stage, president off the stage, the vice president's off the stage. Everybody's still trying to figure out what's going on. It seemed to me it came over my back left shoulder into the exit that's to the back of the room. At that point, all the cabinet secretaries start to get hustled out of the room. Various groups of Secret Service are shouting out for cabinet secretaries, asking them to raise their hands, or at least calling out to them. I don't know if they're saying raise their hands. They're then sort of climbing through the tables and chairs. Most people are down beneath their seats, and they're pulling out individual cabinet secretaries and hustling them out of the room. Other dignitaries besides cabinet secretaries were hustled out as well. It was more like state delegations as well. But at this point, it's everybody just kind of trying to figure out what's going on. You know, I don't want to add to the mix. I've heard different things about what could have happened outside. Haven't seen anything myself. It's all what people are saying. I don't know if you are.
All right, and we will take this as gossip and conjecture. Is somebody speaking at the podium? Not yet. Somebody's up there, though. John, what are you hearing as conjecture? This is conjecture.
Yeah, I mean, that they're...
Unfortunately, John, you're cutting out. Once we find that one location and we get you back on the phone, don't move. You with us? Yeah, I can imagine all the cells. We'll get a better connection with John and we'll continue our conversation. So you've got 2,000 journalists in this room, all hearing things, conjecturing. Mike Dubke, does anything, I mean, what's your initial gut on what just happened here?
Well, depending on, I mean, again, it's all speculation, yeah. And it all revolves around the loud noises. I think if you were in a room and there were actual shots, that would have been a very distinctive noise. It could have been something outside of the room. He sounds, if what John was saying about the exit, it could have been somebody stopped before they got to the room. The interesting thing, I think, for your viewers on all of this is each one of the cabinet secretaries has their own security detail, as well as the Secret Service that's
telling them to
there.
Raise their hands.
Well, but they're all in the room as well, I would imagine. And so, I mean, they generally have 2, 3, maybe 4 people that are with them, each cabinet secretary. So you had a lot of security in this room, given the number of cabinet secretaries that came to this event.
And they're still up there on the stage. Can't tell if they're about to make an announcement. It looks like some attendees are back up there, so whether they're going to seat or not, I don't know. But in the meantime, this was maybe 15 minutes ago, and we're going to show you a replay of what happened, and here we go. Karen Bohan, former editor-in-chief of USA Today. when you watch that, what do you see?
So you see people on the head table taken by surprise, and the president whisked out of there very, very quickly.
Did you hear those 4 loud noises?
Yeah.
I heard those too, didn't you? But the president and Wei Zhang didn't seem to have a quick reaction to them.
Well, I mean, you've been in a room with hundreds of people and the conversations that are happening,
right.
and you're having a personal conversation, most likely trying to lean in and hear the person speaking to you. And you know, your microphones are picking up noises. Again, it sounded distant, at least from the microphones, but that is not surprising that they wouldn't have heard a thing.
Well, hey, Greta Bronner of C-SPAN is at the dinner, and she is on the line. First of all, Greta, what we're seeing on the scene right now is that all the attendees are filing out. Is that correct?
Yes, and I just left myself, actually, so I was able to talk to you because there's not cell service down in the ballroom area. So I left the building. I'm standing outside. There is a large police presence outside. The attendees are filing out, and it's unclear what's going to happen next. The lobby of the Hilton is where the action happened before the ballroom. I'm not sure. It was unclear what was happening in the ballroom itself. It sort of obviously caught everyone by surprise as we were sitting there and the dinner was getting underway.
Greta, did you see the president and Mrs. Trump being hustled off?
I did not. It happened so quickly. I was talking to folks at our table. I heard a clattering of what sounded like plates, turned around, and the vice president, the president, the first lady were gone. That's how quickly it happened.
Okay. All right. So you're standing outside the Hilton now. You're on Mass Ave or Connecticut Avenue? Or close by Connecticut Avenue, which is where the hotel is?
Yep.
Okay.
Yep, absolutely.
Is the dinner over?
It's hard to know at this point. When I exited the ballroom, I turned around to law enforcement to go try to find a different way out. And he said to me, "You cannot come back in this way." So once I had left the ballroom, if anyone leaves the ballroom, you're not getting back in. I believe he said to me, "This is a crime scene. You are not coming back in this way." Back through the metal detectors to get into the ballroom.
Okay. He used the term crime scene.
I believe.
Okay.
So.
Hey, Greta, stay on the line.
It was a rush to get out.
Okay. But it looks like everybody was in there, stayed in there for a while.
Yes, and it was as the president, first lady, and the vice president were rushed out, there was another wave of law enforcement that came in after them. They escorted out the Health and Human Services Secretary, RFK Jr. Then I, next to our table, saw the Secretary of State escorted out, Marco Rubio. The Small Business Administrator.
When you
Kelly
say
Loeffler,
escorted out, I mean, are we talking about, pardon me, covering the protectee or just walking them out?
Walking them out with law enforcement surrounding them. For RFK Jr., he had more law enforcement around him, escorting him out. Their weapons were revealed at that point. The Secretary of State had less of people around him, and he was escorted out toward the dais where the president had been, and they went back through that room when they were brought out. We also had the Small Business Administrator close to our table, and she was also there were law enforcement surrounding her as well.
Hey,
Kelly Loeffler.
Greta, are you guessing that the president is back at the White House at this point?
He was evacuated, from what I understood, and he is no longer on the presence on the grounds.
Great. Hey, Greta,
There are helicopters.
Yep.
There are helicopters circling right now.
Okay. All right. Hey, Greta, stay on the line with us. I think we just saw John McCardle, who's still in the ballroom. Nope, John is not there. Wei Zhang is back at the dais. Let's listen.
I can tell you that our program is going to resume momentarily. We will have more details to share also momentarily, but for now, please just be patient as we figure out just how much time it will be, but it shouldn't be that much longer. Thank you very much. Thank you.
Zhang of CBS just shared that the program will resume. Did we lose Greta? I think we lost Greta. Let's check in with John McCardle. Okay. Hey, Greta, are you still with us?
Yes.
Weijia Zhang of CBS just said that the program will resume. So I take it that everybody's safe at this point, but probably not return of the president and Mrs. Trump and Vice President Vance.
And the rest of the cabinet secretaries as well.
Yeah.
I'm sure they have been removed from the Hilton.
And Greta, you think you're going to have trouble getting back in, huh?
I think so.
Okay.
I think so. The crowds are, they don't appear that they are at this end of the building where I'm at. Folks have left the building. It's a room for journalists, and as I'm talking to you, Peter, I hear a journalist saying, "I'm headed to the bureau." So folks have to do their job at the same time when you have a historical moment like this.
Yeah. Okay. Hey, if you don't mind just staying on the line, just so we have that connection to the Washington Hilton until we get John on camera, we'd appreciate it. Thank you very much. They are back. No, they're back up at the dais, but looks like they're doing some technical. They're doing some technical work here. Hey, Karen Bohan, who is our guest here, and not doing the program that we had predicted that we would be doing this evening. We appreciate your rolling with us. When something like this, as a reporter, when something like this happens in the middle of mundane activities, what happens at USA Today?
So for any reporter in that room, whether they're USA Today or the Washington Post, they're thinking, how can I file a story on this? How can I get information out? And it has to be very frustrating because not only do they not know what's going on, but as we talked about earlier, cell service is terrible in that ballroom. It's awful.
Yeah, so Greta is out. Our Greta Bronner is out, and she's on the street, and she was able to hear us. So,
one
go
quick
ahead,
thing.
Mike.
I've noticed they haven't taken the seal off the podium. That is unusual. If the president, and they are measuring the teleprompters.
And what does that tell you, Mike Dubke?
It tells me the president might actually be coming back.
Really?
I would be incredibly surprised if that happened, but generally you would take the seal off the podium and you would not be measuring your teleprompter distance. So that was an interesting.
Hey, John McCardle,
shot.
I don't know if you heard Mike Dubke saying that, but the seal is still on the podium and they're measuring the teleprompter. Is the president coming back?
So we're told that the program is going to continue. I don't know if you heard Weijia Zhang.
We did.
She made that announcement. You're right, the seal is still on the podium. Just a few minutes ago, probably about 10 minutes at this point, they were trying to get all the reporters to leave out of the door behind me. I don't know if you saw the shot, and many of the reporters did. But as that was happening, one of the members of the White House Correspondents Association came out and said that the dinner is going to continue. And then you heard Weijia Zhang saying that everybody obviously wants more information. She'll have some more information, but they're getting a signal now that it seems like the program is going to continue, Peter.
John, you're still in the ballroom, correct?
I am.
How
Peter.
full is it at this point?
It's still pretty full, Peter. I would say the part of the room that emptied out was the room part of the room that was closest to that entrance that they opened and was telling everybody to leave. So all those tables are empty behind me. But if you switch this camera around, everybody is still at the tables to the center and on the left side of the hall.
How much, not damage or destruction, but how much did the Secret Service leaping over those tables disrupt the setup.
Yeah, I don't know if you saw that, Peter. They were coming through, knocking chairs out of the way. John, they weren't real concerned about tables or glasses, obviously. But there was a decent amount of tables and chairs that had been flipped. I only saw one person who was being carried out who seemed to have some sort of leg issue. I don't know if that happened with the Secret Service member leaping over them or leaping on them. But one person was injured leaving, and they were escorted out by a Secret Service member with a gun.
Terrific. Hey, CNN is reporting that a shooter is in custody at the Correspondents' Dinner. Greta, have you seen any activity outside? You said you mentioned a large police presence.
Yes, there are several police cars. There's law enforcement outside of the exit that several of us went through. I'm here with Jonathan Allen, NBC political producer, and he just told me that he's leaving. He does not plan to come back. Jonathan Allen, can you just tell us what you saw when you were in the ballroom?
Sure. I didn't see a lot. What I heard was a couple of percussions that sounded like gunshots. If anybody's heard a gunshot before, pretty clear. However, it was somewhat distant from the ballroom, or appeared to be some buffer in terms of the sound. And then the room got basically swarmed with law enforcement officers screaming for everybody to get down. I saw Secretary of Health and Human Services, RFK Jr., whisked away on one side of the stage. The president obviously was removed very quickly. The Defense Secretary, Pete Hegseth, moved through a center aisle. Speaker of the House, Mike Johnson's wife, was under a table for a while. He had been spirited out by his security, and then they had to go back and get her. Obviously, a very mortifying moment for everyone in the room, but very difficult to see what happened, in large part because it appears to have happened outside of the ballroom that everybody was in. And Greta, I'm going to give it back to you.
Peter, as you just heard from Jonathan Allen, from his perspective of what happened when this all went down this evening, numerous people have been filing out and don't appear that they are going to go back in. We heard from Ouija Jiang that they will proceed tonight. However, folks have left and they don't intend to come back. So we'll see what the attendance looks like if indeed they continue with tonight's program.
Greta, thank you. Stay on the line. Mike Dubke, you called it sounds like, when you talked about the measuring of the teleprompter and the seal, because it sounds like the president may be coming back.
I am going to be highly surprised if the president comes back, but, just as he performed in Butler, this president seizes a moment, but that seal being still there and the measurement, that is very typical of getting ready for a presidential address and a speech. But generally, you'd see, and it was interesting, you watched, the president was taken out, and then the cabinet secretaries, and then there is a hierarchy in Washington when it comes to emergencies such as this. And you also heard, the service protects the principles, and sometimes spouses get left behind, and it's a terrible, terrible thing that happened. But the security performed the way they needed to.
And Greta, we will continue to check in with you if you find anything else outside of the Washington Hilton. But let's check in with John McCardle. John is still in the ballroom. John, you're on the phone with us, correct?
I can hear you.
All right.
So,
what do you got for us?
Peter, so we've turned our camera around 180 degrees. Before you were looking at me towards the emptier side of the room. You can see behind me that most of the room, most of the reporters and the folk here are still waiting around because the folks sitting in the door when the Secret Service initially came in and said, everybody out. Yeah, Peter.
John, just keep your head still because you break up every time you turn your head. So just look at the camera, okay, and just talk to us.
So, Peter, behind the stage, obviously, so this side of the stage from what you're, as you said, they haven't taken the president's plaque off the podium, and there's been some movement on stage. there's been no movement, I'll say, at the dinner tables. There have been some of the wait staff that has come out and removed the salad course. I don't know if that means they're going to continue serving with the course, but if they're doing that, it's maybe a sign that they plan to continue with the dinner, and we're just watching what happens here.
Yeah, okay. Karen Bohan, listening to all of this, I mean, what would you be doing as a journalist right now? If you were caught in that room, or would you have gone to the bureau, gone out of the room?
So I would have stayed in the room because, you know, in the room is where you're going to get probably more facts and find out what happened. You know, one of the things that a lot of journalists are doing is, I'm sure, talking to people who might have been in other parts of the hotel where they might have seen something happen, you know, because the noises that we heard were muffled, and figuring out exactly where they came from.
Yeah, and again, I'm looking at the CNN banner saying that Trump is safe after shooter in custody at Correspondents Dinner is what CNN is reporting. I haven't seen any further news beyond that, but it was maybe 45 minutes ago now that the dinner was just getting started. They were, as we know, getting their salads. Oz Perlman, the mentalist, was talking with Mr. and Mrs. Trump on the podium. Let's watch what happened again. And that's what happened about 45 minutes ago. Now back to the live ballroom. Let's see what's happening up there. Nope, people are still talking on the phone. Nothing is moved yet. John McCardle, any update for us?
Peter, it's literally a lot of waiting right now, trying to figure out what to do. The reporters in the room obviously don't want to leave. It's just kind of the nature of reporters who want to see what happens. It's a lot of checking phones, checking in with family members, people asking if they're okay, people asking if other people have information. But like I said, there's also people popping some of the bottles of wine that hadn't been opened yet. I think people trying to relax after an obviously stressful time just about 45 minutes ago.
John, first of all, have you called Laura? Have you contacted your wife to let her know you're okay? And B,
yes, Peter, thank you.
And how stressful was that for you? I mean, how much stress did you feel? Did you have a fight or flight response?
No, Peter, it's what the heck is going on? You know, we were talking about it afterwards. I thought a table got tipped over at first. It wasn't a distinct pop, 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 pop. It was more of a bang, 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 bang. I don't know if that makes sense, but like, it wasn't what I expected. What a bullet sound would sound like. But apparently it happened through the doors and upstairs. So maybe that's part of the muffling from what we heard in the room, which is why everyone's reaction was, I think, a little bit slower of like, was that what we thought it was?
Hey, yeah, John, talk to that. Greta told us that this happened in the lobby of the Washington Hilton Hotel, and the ballroom is like 2 levels down, 1 level down?
Yes, it's about 2 stairwells down. You come into the lobby. You saw where our red carpet coverage was, Peter. That same floor is the lobby area. You go past where the red carpet was. You take a left. You go through magnetometers, dogs, I would assume bomb-sniffing dogs, that sort of thing. We had to go through all of that in the lobby, and then you go down 2 levels, and that's the height of this room that you can see to get to where we are, which is why cell service isn't great down here. But if this happens...
And, of course, right there he cuts out. Right after he mentions cell service is not good, we're going to have to move you a little bit, John, or get you somewhere so we can have that good coverage, but we appreciate your time. Now, Fox is reporting that the president is returning to the dinner. Yeah. Mike Dubke, does that surprise you, knowing President Trump?
It does not surprise me, knowing President Trump. it surprises me that the Secret Service are allowing him to return to the dinner.
Do you think the Secret Service had a role if he wanted to go? Can the president overrule?
Absolutely, he can. Generally, they listen to the Secret Service. But again, you know, I mentioned Butler earlier. This is a president that has, I hate to say, been there, done that, because I think this was less of an incident than that was. But you know, this is also a president who understands the power of the media, and when they did not, as I said earlier, when they did not pull that seal off the podium, there was a sneaking suspicion something was happening.
Yeah, because that goes pretty quickly, doesn't it?
That does go pretty quickly, yes.
So the other thing is that presidents never want to look like they're hiding from something, you know, and I think there is an inclination of any president to want to reassure people that things are back to normal. The Secret Service, you know, often, you know, would put their foot down and say that, no, you know, your safety is more important. But presidents do overrule Secret Service. You know, 9/11 obviously very different, but, you know, there was a big debate, you know, as to where President Bush should go, because he was out of Washington when that attack happened. And, you know, if the people in charge of security had their way, there would be no risk-taking at all. You know, you would just remove the president. But, you know, presidents don't want to be seen as being in hiding at a moment like this.
You know, one interesting addition to this that I might give is that my guess is the Secret Service feels that they are comfortable knowing what the incident was and what happened, because if there still was a threat within the building, there is no way. I don't care if the president said I'm going back. They would not. Yeah. They would not allow that. So again, I am slightly surprised. The seal was a giveaway, but with this president, you know, this is part of his and this is part of his persona. And then to your point, no president wants to seem like they are hiding.
All right. So Mike Dubke, Karen Bohan, he's got this speech. The speech has been written. The speech has been loaded into the teleprompter. It's got jokes. It's maybe got zingers. Is that the speech that's going to be delivered tonight?
Parts of it. He's furiously, I think, figuring out what his ad libs are to this. I think he's probably thinking all of that through. You know, again, there's a president that speaks off the cuff very well. I think you're going to hear a lot. You're going to hear a lot more straight out of the mouth of Donald Trump than maybe you would have the canned jokes that he had prepared for the evening.
Greta Bronner is outside the Washington Hilton Hotel on Connecticut Avenue in D.C. Greta, what do you got for us?
Peter, I tried walking one direction after I had exited the building. I was told by law enforcement he was not allowed to allow anyone back that direction, which is toward the front of the Hilton. And he said, I'm not allowed to let you back in. And so I said, so if you leave, you're not going back in. And he said, I don't know, ma'am. I've just been told you cannot come this way. And as I said earlier, I've talked to many of the attendees who are standing outside. They were told to get out. Once the people had been ducking under tables and they came up, they said, you're safe now. You need to leave. And they escorted people out of the ballroom. And so many of the attendees are not planning to go back in.
Well, we understand Fox is reporting, and our suspicions are that the president is returning to the Washington Hilton.
I heard that. I heard CNN is reporting the same. You know, I can just tell you what I'm seeing from the outside. The helicopter that was circling seems to have left. The police force, though, is still here. I mean, there are ambulances and there are fire trucks and there are police vans, police cars.
Are you in a position, Greta, to see the motorcade coming up Connecticut?
I am not.
Okay. All right.
I'm heading toward Connecticut right now, but I've been on the backside of the Washington Hilton.
And the White House is now confirming that the president is coming back to the Washington Hilton. So there will be some type of a program this evening. John McArdle in the ballroom. John, you got an update for us?
Peter, I'm hearing what you're hearing. Actually, what I had heard from some of the folks in the room is that the president didn't actually leave, that he does want to come back, and that he's still somewhere in a secure area. Here, again, that's part of what's happening in the room. I'm also joined by Jasmine Wright. C-SPAN viewers know Jasmine well. Jasmine, do you want to talk about what you know at this point and what you've heard?
So what we know is that we were seated on the upper rim of the ball, and we heard a succession of pops. It sounded like we saw pops get down to the ground, and after the shots let out, she looked at us, and I saw my coach, and he had to be been evacuated. So I was second up, being quick timing. Secret Service moved to remove Jem from the room, and then we saw them try to basically climb over the space.
Right.
It's so to see the room, but they were seated, some on the ground, really questioning what was happening. Just some officials down in the booth here, and they said they actually didn't hear pulse. And so it was a lot of confusion. I talked to one administration, so the first thing that they heard, they were seated closest to the stage, was the sound of running.
John, hold that microphone closer to Jasmine.
But you saw the Secret Service agents climbing on the table, trying to remove the cabinet officials. Secretary of HHS, Robert.
This isn't worth it.
Marco Castillo, they were trying to place him in the ballroom. They removed Secretary of Defense. That's being removed.
All these individual details.
But it both felt like it happened so quickly, and also it took a lot of time because of the position of the table.
Have you gotten any information more than we've heard from Wei Zhejiang about this continuing? What we know was the announcement saying this will continue in some way, and we've also heard that the president wants to come back.
Some say that he's going to come back. But obviously, I think the one administration official still left in the room tonight who said that whether or not he does come back, because it's conservative, they believe that he wants to come back because it's now his third assassination attempt, and this would be a moment for his president show America against him. The question is whether or not he's going to back in the room.
John McArdle.
It would be on today, whether or not
John McArdle, I'm afraid we're going to have to lose you.
Peter, I just heard you. You're heading out.
Hey, John, we're going to have to cut. I apologize. The audio on that was so difficult. There was so much good information, and we just could not hear you clearly enough. If you could get a better location and keep Jasmine close by, we just cannot get that audio. And we really want to hear what you guys were talking about. Okay, now, I think Mike Dubke or Karen Bohan, you said that the president probably didn't even leave the hotel at this point, it sounds like, because if he's coming back, we got Greta out on Connecticut Avenue outside the Washington Hilton. Greta, any update for us?
Hey, Peter.
Yep.
I just tried to walk onto Connecticut Avenue, was told that is all off limits at this moment. And the police officer is uncertain as to what is happening right now. He has just been told that no one can access Connecticut Avenue.
Wow.
I'm making my way around, I think, what will be several blocks and try to cut down the other way.
You know, I don't mean to make a joke at this point, but Greta, I know you don't have comfortable shoes on.
I do not. I do not. But, yeah, it's the law enforcement is still here. I misspoke before. The helicopter is still circling around the Hilton.
Well, it looks like Sean Duffy is back in the ballroom. We see Transportation Secretary Sean Duffy there back in the ballroom. Greta, it also sounds like the president never left the Hilton, is what we're also being told. Whether we not confirmed, but we're being told that as well. So Sounds like Greta's out of range as well. Now, Mike Dubke, you've referenced this a couple of times, but how do you think the president's reacting, especially after what happened in Butler? Is he ticked off? Is he defiant? You know, what do you think his
I think his demeanor,
emotion is?
Well, I think his demeanor is around the three words he said: fight, fight, fight. I think that's his demeanor, and he's going to have the same demeanor for this event as well.
Karen Bohan, once this is all settled and the investigation starts, how long will that go? I mean, how in depth will we go on a potential shooting, a shooter close to the president?
So I think there will be a lengthy investigation, because this is a huge lapse. I mean, this is, yes, the president is safe, and even if the event goes on, but for a shooter to get that close to the president at an event where, the security precautions are known. This is an event that takes place every year. President is attending as president for the first time, but he is not the first president to do so. So, what happened here, has to be of a huge amount of concern.
Yeah, it looks like they, even when they took him off the podium, that they put him on the ground to begin, at least covered him there. They didn't know what was happening. Right.
What's interesting to me through all of this is you've got this room of reporters, and we went through this at the beginning of the Trump administration, where reporters are finally utilizing social media at that time in 2017. So we got a lot of things in which, and this is where I had an issue with the media at the time, where they were reporting out through social media items that their editors wouldn't let them put in the newspaper because they didn't have two sources. And it was a little loosey-goosey at that period of time in 2017. For your listeners, I would not be surprised if they went to the individual feeds of some of these reporters. They'd get a lot of information as well through X and other social media sites.
And it will be interesting when President Trump posts on social media, which he just did.
Okay.
Quite an evening in D.C. Secret Service and law enforcement did a fantastic job. They acted quickly and bravely. The shooter has been apprehended, and I have recommended that we let the show go on, but will entirely be guided by law enforcement. They will make a decision shortly. Regardless of that decision, the evening will be much different than planned, and we'll just plain have to do it again. President Donald J. Trump. There it is.
It's interesting that "let the show go on" is in all caps. So he feels very strongly about that.
Mike Dubke, when you see something in all caps from the president, how should we read that? As a
well, I'm going to make
insider.
a joke about this. If it's prior to midnight, he really means it. If it's after midnight, all bets are off.
But it sounds like, let's going back to this Truth Social post. I have recommended that we let the show go on, but will entirely be guided by law enforcement. They will make a decision shortly. That was at 9:17 p.m. that he sent that out, and it is currently 10:30. So that was about an hour ago that he put this post out, or at least
no, it's only 9:20. I have, unless my watch is stopped.
No. You are correct. I apologize. I'm trying to tell military time here in the studio clock, and that's not going to be successful. My math skills are off. So let's check. We've got two C-SPAN journalists, one in the ballroom. That's John McCardle. We got Greta Bronner on Connecticut Avenue outside the Washington Hilton. Greta, do you have any updates for us?
I have made my way to Connecticut Avenue, Peter, and I'm listening to all of you. I heard what the president posted on Truth Social, and it will be interesting to see if the show goes on, what sort of attendance there is. Folks are filing out. They are, trying to find Ubers, walking blocks, because this perimeter has extended from what it was when we arrived here this evening, and you no longer are allowed to access the Hilton. I'm about 1 block off of the Hilton, and it's roped off. I do want to add one bit of, I guess, color to the evening when we heard the Secret Service tell folks to get down. When the room fell to a hush, I was looking up from my table, and Senator John Fetterman, I don't know if he was on C-SPAN camera, he was standing up the entire time. I mean, the room of people at the tables were most everyone was ducking down following the orders that they were hearing around them. But Senator John Fetterman was standing up. He was looking around the ballroom. He was watching as the cabinet secretaries were whisked toward the dais. I found it very interesting that's how he observed the situation.
Hey, Greta, I know when we've replayed now a couple of times the incident itself, and Karen Bohan and Mike Dubke on the set with me, we could all hear the boom, 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 boom. Did you hear it when you were in the room?
Was that to me, Peter?
Yes, ma'am.
Yes, I did not hear gunshots, what people have described as what they thought were gunshots. I did not hear that. I heard what sounded like a tray clashing to the ground, people shouting, "Get down, get down." And when I turned to look at the dais, as I said earlier, the president, first lady, the vice president, they were gone. It happened incredibly quickly. And then you couldn't, from where we were at, you could not see where there was a person in the room or a suspect in the room. Everyone was down. The room was pretty quiet. And then the Secret Service, the law enforcement started streaming in. You saw them jumping on chairs. They were quickly traversing the room on chairs and moving toward the front of the room, moving toward the principals in the room to get them out of the ballroom. It happened very quickly.
Greta, thanks for the update, and I hope we can check back in with you in a little while. It sounds like Greta will not be getting back in. Mike Dubke, we're going to go back and show the Truth Social and the Truth Social post that the president put out at 9:17 this evening. Can you confirm that he types those himself? That he takes out a device and types those, or does he?
I can confirm that every one of the posts that goes out, he has seen and approved. He doesn't necessarily type every single one out. That's generally for maybe minor ones. I would almost guarantee you that he typed this one out himself.
That he typed this one out himself. Yes. Karen Bohan, has the president's use of social media been valuable to you as a reporter?
Well, it's valuable that we always know what he's thinking. And as a reporter, you're used to most presidents stay on message and they don't wade into certain topics. And this president is somebody who speaks his mind anywhere and everywhere.
Yeah, I don't know who's more frustrated with the social media. I think the White House Communications Department is, because it's very difficult to keep your principal on message when he has a direct access to the American people and the world.
Well, you're looking at live pictures from the Washington Hilton Ballroom. It looks like things have settled down there a little bit. People are resetting and resitting, and we'll find out what's happening. The podium, the teleprompter is still up. The seal is still on the podium. John McArdle is in the ballroom. John, what do you got for us?
Peter, do you have me?
Yep.
It seems like, there's been two announcements since you've been talking to take your seats. The program is going to begin momentarily. And so reporters in the room, everybody who's left in the room at this point, have been asked to start to take their seats. It's starting to get a little bit quieter in the room, but we're expecting some sort of stage presentation within the next few minutes here, Peter.
And John, when you say stage presentation, do you think the awards, maybe the president speaks, right off the top here. And what about, God, this is mundane, food service? Has that ended at this point?
I have not seen the waiters come out since some of them were removing some of the salads earlier. In terms of what the program could be, I mean, I would imagine that the Wei Zhejiang will try to give some details. They've said a couple times now, we know you want to know what happened. We'll have more information for you. It seems like the president wants to say something. Peter, do I think they're going to go with a full program with the awards and, you know, all the media and O's? I don't think so. But I think they want to do something. This is a celebration of the First Amendment. This is, you know, the freedom of the press and the freedom of the press not being intimidated by what's happening with somebody who wants to do violence. I think that is now the priority, or I would guess that's the priority of the folks at the White House Correspondents Association right now.
All right. Thank you, John. We'll be back with you shortly. Kieran Bohan, when something like this happens, is there natural sympathy toward the attendee in this case?
So I think it does change the tone. I think going into this, reporters were sort of poised for an uncomfortable evening in which the president would have choice words for reporters. You know, I would expect that Weijia will still emphasize the First Amendment and freedom of the press. I don't think her remarks will change that much. But it definitely changes the tone.
Mike Dubke, again, we mentioned this a little bit earlier, but how do you see the currently written speech changing? Is somebody from the communication shop
frantically
on a laptop
this,
right now
yes.
and just rewriting this?
There's an opportunity, frankly, here for the president to reach out and talk about the freedom of the press and not being intimidated. Again, he can speak to it as somebody who has had violence threatened and acted upon him. And now you've got a room full of individuals that, you know, what's the old joke? It's not Democrats and Republicans. It's who's ever in the office and the press. That's the true enemies in Washington, D.C. And he's got an opportunity here with an olive branch, and hopefully, and I would think that the media would receive it as well.
And because in a lot of past speeches, President Obama, President Clinton, very critical of the media and the coverage of their administrations. Yeah. Like all presidents are critical of the media. I think that's fair to say.
They are, but you know, most presidents, I think, are able to put that aside, especially at moments like this when they're in a gathering of reporters that sort of, in theory, they agree with the importance of what we do, but in practice, don't always like the results of that.
I'm a little bit late, but just a minute ago we saw the host of America's Book Club on C-SPAN, David Rubenstein, and the owner of the Baltimore Orioles, and he was talking with Major Garrett of CBS. So those are two people in the room.
And they've just taken the seal off the podium.
Did they?
Yes.
Good eye, Mike. Good eye. Yeah. Let's check in with John McArdle, who's standing right there in the ballroom. Okay, John.
Yeah, Peter, I know you've talked about the presidential seal on the podium. Yep. There was a staff member who just came up and took it off. If you look now, I don't know if you have a shot directly.
Yep, we see it.
But the presidential seal is no longer on the podium, perhaps a sign that the president may not be coming back out. Yeah. He said in that True Social post that, of course, he'll let law enforcement make the final decision. Maybe that means they made the decision that he won't be coming back out. But literally just about 15 seconds ago, somebody came up, took that seal off the podium. Again, they've made the announcement that they want the reporters in the room to sit down. Nobody really is. But they promised that the program will continue in some way, but maybe it's going to continue now without President Trump.
And, you know, we are blessed to have Mike Dubke here tonight because he caught that immediately that the seal came off, the former Trump insider. He saw the seal come down. He knew it was over at this point. Is it over at this point?
I think that it probably is over at this point. Yes.
Okay. Now it'll be interesting to see if he's still at the Hilton or if he has already been returned to the White House. But with the security perimeter that it sounds like Greta was telling us about around the Hilton, it sounds like he still might be at the Hilton.
He could very well be, but if they're making that decision.
And here is the Secret Service and their press release. The U.S. Secret Service, in coordination with the Metropolitan Police Department, is investigating a shooting incident near the main magnetometer screening area at the White House Correspondents' Dinner. The President and the First Lady are safe, along with all protectees. One individual is in custody. The condition of those involved is not yet known, and law enforcement is actively assessing the situation. So, and that is Chief of Communications from the U.S. Secret Service. At least we know the location at this point. The main magnetometer going into the ballroom. Have you been to the dinners before?
I have once before, but I think you were there this morning or earlier today.
And you're the former chair of the association. Yeah. You know exactly where those magnetometers are. Anybody who's been to the dinner, and
every single person that goes into the ballroom.
Those are relatively close to the ballroom too.
Yes,
the main magnetometers.
they're close. Yeah. But the line to get to the magnetometers is long.
You're right.
Typically, but it's chaotic there.
It is.
You know, they check your tickets.
Here's Weijia Zhang, CBS News.
It's a room full of reporters, so I know you've already seen the president. My apologies. His post on Truth Social, and law enforcement has requested that we leave the premises consistent with protocol. And he wanted to emphasize that nobody was hurt. He and the First Lady, the cabinet, everybody's safe. The president will be having a press briefing at the White House in 30 minutes. That is not a joke. And he insists that we will reschedule this event in the next 30 days. And that he wanted to do it tonight. He wanted to continue despite the news, but has to follow security protocol. I said earlier tonight that journalism is a public service, because when there is an emergency, we run to the crisis, not away from it. And on a night when we are thinking about the freedoms in the First Amendment, we must also think about how fragile they are. I saw all of you reporting, and that's what we do. So, thank God everybody is safe. And thank you for coming together tonight. We will do this again. Thank you.
Well, with that said, it looks like we'll be hearing from the president in about 30 minutes. And in that meantime, we do want to hear from our viewers as well. We're going to put the numbers up on the screen. 202 is the area code. 748-8001 for Republicans, 748-8000 for Democrats, and 748-8002 for Independents. Now, Karen Bohan, former editor-in-chief of USA Today. Mike Dubke, former communications director in the first Trump administration. I want to note that when Weijia was speaking, we were all listening very intently, but when she said that the president was holding a press conference in 30 minutes, we all laughed. Why did we laugh? I mean, I think we all found it relieving or amusing. I'm not sure.
Amusing, but also a little odd that a journalist is announcing that the president is holding a press conference instead of a press secretary. I mean, it was a little strange, and it was the first indication that we got that the president will be speaking publicly. You know, he had written on Truth Social that he wanted the show to go on, but he still does want to speak publicly.
Why did you laugh?
I laughed because it just quickly dawned on me that the president got one up on the press once again. That's what went through my head when I heard that. He's not only is the dinner now, I think, officially over. There's only going to be one speaker tonight, and that's going to be the president, and he's going to get to say whatever he wants to say in the confines, the safe confines of the White House. So That was the humor I found in it.
And the fact that he wants to do the dinner, or Wei Zhejiang said that he wants to do the dinner and reschedule in 30 days.
These are not small affairs to put on. They are not inexpensive, and it'll be hard to find that ballroom. So I think it's fantastic he made that offer. I will be very curious how they pull this
Bohan, you were
off.
White House Correspondents Association president in 2011-12. Does this take about a week to put together?
It takes months. Yeah. It literally takes months.
After tonight's dinner, would they start planning next year's already?
Yeah, immediately after. You know, in 2011, I immediately began planning for the dinner in 2012. You know, that starts with finding the entertainment, which presumably doesn't have an issue there because presumably Oz Perlman would return for that. But all of the logistics around the dinner, I mean, you're talking about an event with 2,600 people and all of that security and all of the news organizations that participate.
Well, another True Social post by Donald Trump. Law enforcement has requested that we leave the premises consistent with protocol, which we will do immediately. So it sounds like he is still at the Hilton. I will be giving a press conference in 30 minutes from the White House press briefing room. The First Lady, plus the Vice President, and all cabinet members are in perfect condition. We will be speaking to you in a half an hour. I have spoken with all the representatives in charge of the event, and we will be rescheduling within 30 days. President Donald J. Trump. Mike Dubke, as the Trump interpreter, what does that say to you? What is that? Did he type that one as well, do you think?
I will say the line that he typed are in perfect condition. That is Trump language there. The rest of this was probably crafted by the press team. He went through with his Sharpie. He edited it down. He made sure that he wanted to convey that thought. But there are some Trump-isms in that True Social. That's how it would have been.
In perfect condition is a Trump-ism?
I would, if you're asking me my expert opinion, that's what I would say.
All right.
Yes.
One more time before he has to exit the ballroom. John McArdle is at the Washington Hilton. Mr. McArdle, any updates that we don't know yet? John is not in the ballroom, or if he is, he cannot hear us. But let's take a couple calls from our viewers, see what their reaction is to this. And we'll take those calls right after, one more time, let's replay the events of now about an hour, hour and a half ago. And this is what happened, and this is what caused the tumbling of events. Let's watch. And that was about 8:25 this evening. Mike Dubke, we were walking through that and we saw Wei Zhejiang put her hand to her mouth.
Yep.
But then we saw the covering of the president. They didn't necessarily take him out of the room. What were they doing?
They were making sure that he was removed from being a target of whatever the noise was, whatever was happening there, assessing the situation to make sure that they could get him up and move him out. It was, again, I hate to keep referencing this, but we saw a very similar action in Butler, and you've seen this with other presidents as well, where they make sure that he is protected by a body, in this case, of a Secret Service agent, and then when it's safe to move him out quickly.
Yeah, and it looks like the journalists now, Karen Bohan, are being escorted out. It looks like the room is actually starting to empty a little bit. Yeah.
Back to the dinner and how difficult these items are to put on. I would not be surprised, and I'm saying this now on C-SPAN, maybe they're listening. They could erect a tent on the South Lawn. It would solve the security issues and have a barbecue for the press.
Yeah. I mean,
What would you think about that?
well, I'm not sure a barbecue is really
A black tie
what you
barbecue.
do with
It would be out of the ordinary.
This is going to mark a big change in the security for this dinner and
Forever
in the
and
planning.
ever, amen,
forever,
right?
yeah. I mean, this hotel is what, maybe a mile and a half from the White House, but
it's been used for 6 decades. JFK was in this ballroom. Richard Nixon, the whole gang, all the way through. They've all been in this ballroom, and that's a lot of history.
Well, so the WHCA dinner hasn't always been at this location.
Oh, it has not. I
no,
apologize.
Since I believe it is. It dates back to the 1980s, the early 1980s. Okay. There were other hotels in town. The Capitol Hilton, which is closer to the White House.
At 16th and K?
At 16th and K, yeah. Which used to be, I believe it was the Statler Hotel. Right. And the reason that this dinner is at the Hilton, the Washington Hilton, is because the ballroom is so large. And, if you wanted to have a dinner this size, no other hotel can accommodate it.
And wasn't this ballroom designed for this type of event with a security event on top of that?
Yeah.
So, and the fact that both the president and the vice president, the Speaker of the House, were all in the same room. Yeah, et cetera, et cetera.
When you think about the level of vulnerability there.
Yeah. All right. One more time, let's check in with our friend and colleague, John McCardle. John, what's going on?
Sure. Just wanted to give you a sense of the end of this here at the White House Correspondents Dinner. You can see the journalists are all making their way out. I'm standing next to the ABC News table. Drinks are half drunk and plates are half trays. But at this point, the room is clearing out. There was that announcement you heard from Wei Zhang that there will be that statement from the White House and that it's going to be happening in less than a half an hour, saying that's not a joke. There was almost an audible groan from some of the reporters in the room when they heard that, because many of them then started moving very quickly to the doors, knowing that they had to cover it. This is the White House press corps, and they are, many of them, off to the White House now to continue this story.
And that's a very good point. This is the White House press corps. Yes. And they're going to make their way down. Well, the president.
It's a long walk.
It is a long walk in uncomfortable shoes.
Yes.
And Karen Bohan, is it important? I mean, the cameras can be turned on. Is it important to be in the Brady briefing room for this press conference as a reporter?
Very
Instead
important.
of watching it on TV?
Yeah, I think for the reporters in this room, and there are a lot of reporters in this room who cover other beats. They cover the Pentagon, they cover the State Department. For the reporters who cover the White House every day, they're going to want to be in the press room and be there for that statement.
Hey, John McCardle, have you exited the ballroom yet? Are you in the lobby, or are you still kind of hanging out? Because we still see people in the ballroom hanging out. Oh. Nope. I don't hear John. Sorry about that.
You got a good enough signal out of here.
There we go.
A couple things.
I think we lost John one more time from the ballroom, but we appreciate the effort of keep trying. But look, people are still hanging out down there, so they haven't quite left the room. It's a lot more empty than it was, but not everybody is gone. Let's talk to our viewers. Karen is in Petoskey, Michigan. Karen, you're on C-SPAN. What do you think about what's happening tonight? Karen, are you with us? All right, let's try Donnie in Indianapolis. Donnie, you are on C-SPAN. Please give us your thoughts about what's happening tonight.
Hey, thanks for having me. I feel like I'm just approaching this as a concerned citizen from a few different angles. I'm a high school teacher. Trying to deal with this. We're supposed to have freedom of the press, freedom of speech. Now it's like every single thing, it's like we have to be concerned about, are we truly facing some type of is this a false flag? I hope not. I don't want to even say that, but as a concerned citizen here, what can we do? What's the next steps? Where are our leaders here?
Donnie, thank you very much. What do you teach in high school?
I'm a high school business teacher.
Okay. So is this, we often on this night, when the White House Correspondents' Dinner is happening, get calls from college students and high school students who have either A, been assigned or are just watching it on their own. Donnie, do you think your students are connected to the larger world?
Yeah, definitely. I think this is something that they take seriously, and they want to be vocal about, and they want to participate in. And I think this type of thing truly scares them. And I'm 38 years old. I'm a millennial. I feel like we've been through a lot. So this type of thing, unfortunately, just kind of seems like run of the mill. I hope that we are able to do something about this, but I do think that my students, they want to be active. They want to do what they can. They want to, they want to take a part in trying to be on the right side of things. You know what I mean?
Yes, I do. Donnie, thank you for calling in from Indianapolis. Now, Anthony is right here in Washington, D.C., a Democrat. Anthony, what's your take on what's going on?
Yeah, I live probably about 2 blocks from the Hilton. I no longer hear the helicopters anymore. It's just extremely alarming, and I just think it's a time in America, especially watching this, that we have to do something if this was guns with gun rights and enforcement on guns.
Now, Anthony, do you being 2 blocks from the Hilton, this is kind of a busy night for the neighborhood there around the Hilton. Did you hear increased activity at about 8:20, 8:25 tonight? Were there sirens going off or anything?
So all evening I've been watching you, and I've heard helicopters. It did get a lot more busy with helicopters since this happened. The cops are now a little bit further into the neighborhood as well, so the perimeter has gotten a lot larger.
Anthony, thank you for sharing your neighborhood experience there. Karen Bohan, any reaction to the callers that we've had so far?
So I think the common thread with both of the callers is just a concern about what this means for freedom of speech, what this means for people feeling comfortable with political debate and political speech. This is traumatizing for a lot of people.
Nanette Berrigan, Democrat, California. At the White House Correspondents' Dinner, this is a tweet, dinner as guest of C-SPAN, and it's absolute chaos. Heard the shots and had to get under our table. Grateful for the immediate response from the U.S. Secret Service and security as they work to apprehend the shooter and secure the area. Political violence is never, ever the answer. It must end. After Butler, Mike Dubke, and I know you were not with the president's office at that point. What are you doing these days?
I have a public affairs firm in Washington.
Okay. My guess is, though, you were close to some of the president's people still in 2024. What was the reaction from the staff after what happened in Butler? And then again, what happened tonight?
It comes down really to a, political violence and the threat of violence. A few years ago, prior to Butler, prior to the attempts, there was a lot of conversation and concern about it, but we didn't see the violence. We had rhetoric that was heightened, and some people would make the comment back in the 60s, that was heightened rhetoric along with violence. Now we're having this violence again, the chilling effect of that. I think it is a bit surprising, and now to Daniel's point, I think it was Daniel's point, it's becoming a bit commonplace. That is terrible for our democracy. It's terrible for freedom of the press, of free speech, and it does put a chill on everything. And we're seeing members of Congress leave Congress because of the violence, and that again is a side effect of all of this.
Still a few stragglers in the ballroom there, Karen Bohan. So what's next for Weijia Zhang? I mean, her term was supposed to end, right, after tonight, or the transition begins?
So the transition actually is a couple of months.
Okay.
So the formal transition doesn't occur until July, and there'll be another election, another board voted upon. She has a vice president, Jackie Heinrich of Fox News. So they, I'm sure, have been working hand in glove to plan this dinner. and I think they're not going to be getting a lot of sleep in the next few weeks.
Yeah,
planning.
Weijia, when she came out to announce that the dinner was postponed, seemed pretty emotional, didn't she? I mean, my guess is she had talked to the president at some point.
I would guess that she had talked to the president, but if you think about, not only are you planning this big event, but, she was working on a speech. We saw her talking at the head table with the president and the entertainer for the evening, and you think the evening is going one way and everything completely changes, and you did see her hear emotion in her voice, which is very understandable.
And in just a few minutes we will again replay the events from about 8:20 p.m. Eastern time this evening, when things were going along course and they were just getting ready to serve their salads, and we'll play that in just a minute for you. Albert, Columbus, Ohio, Republican. We have our guests here, Mike Dubke, former communications director in the first Trump administration, and Karen Bohan, former editor-in-chief of USA Today.
Pleased to speak with all of you this evening, but not under these circumstances. The vitriol has to stop. The constant brickbats from one side to the other, and the apparent partisan media in certain circumstances is causing this issue. If we had a ballroom at the White House at this point, we might be able to have that there instead of having it tents on the lawn, which was suggested earlier. But I am just
Albert, when you talk about the media, are you singling out any particular media?
I would say all of it, because it's all become everybody's basically trying to go through and preach to their own choir at this point. You have the Democrats on one side, you have the Republicans on the other. There is no true independent voice left at this point. It doesn't exist anymore.
Thank you, Albert, in Columbus, Ohio. On our Republican line, Karen Bohan. How do you make those, as a former editor-in-chief of USA Today, how would you address Albert's concerns if he wrote into you?
So I think that there is a misunderstanding about why journalists are drawn to a beat like the White House beat. I think for the very reason of wanting to encourage civil debate is why you gravitate toward a beat like that. You want the American people to hear about the issues, to hear the opinions from all sides about the issues. And I think at points in our history, we have had very, very difficult issues as a country that we've been grappling with. And the role of reporters is not to tell people what to think, but to illuminate for people the issues.
Amanda, Austin, Texas, Democrat.
Yeah, my concern is that this is going to be a political issue when this is just a gun violence issue. This is neither Democrat, Republican, nor independent. And I just encourage people to find some organization that fits, their beliefs, that, their mission calls to them, because this is not a political issue. This is strictly a gun violence issue, in my opinion.
Thank you, Amanda. And you two are not invited on to talk about necessarily political issues. But Mike Dubke, what would you say? First of all, what would you say to Amanda about the gun violence, not a political issue? And the term fake news is often used by the Trump administration. We heard Karen Bohan talk about how to address that. How would you address that?
Well, we'll go with Amanda first. I think I think at the end of the day, this was a political statement, whether a gun was involved or a knife or any other type of violence. So for me, I think I would respectfully disagree that there most likely was some political statement that was associated with whatever happened in the outside the ballroom. On to Albert's point and his. When I was in the White House, to back up what Karen was saying, there were very dedicated reporters that were there. The one thing that I will say, now being out of that we need to remember across the board with this diversification of media as it is happening, that these are for-profit corporations. So you've got reporters reporting for their organizations, and those organizations do have a slant. And it is very difficult, I think, for the American people to sort through all of that. But they have a wide diversification of places to go to get their news.
We just want to show you this tweet that was put out by a Hill reporter. This is Treasury Secretary Andy Besant. It'll replay here in just a second. This is him being escorted out. You can see, first of all the people with the guns taking him out, and there's the Treasury Secretary and all his support staff, and just everybody kind of looking around at this point, confused about what's going on. Now, again, at 8:20 this evening, we want to show this one more time. This is a replay of what happened at 8:20 this evening. The President and Mrs. Trump were talking with Oz Perlman, the mentalist, who was the entertainment tonight. And you'll also see Weijia Zhang sitting in the corner. And you'll hear a little audio. Listen carefully. This, again, was at 8:20 p.m. Again, that's what happened at 8:20 this evening. I know we've all seen it now several times, and we will see it over and over and over and from different angles. This is just happens to be the angle that this C-SPAN camera caught. I'm sure there'll be some other angles that will show different video. Karen Bohan, we've mentioned this a couple of times, but just to recap, what kind of investigation is going to go on after what happened tonight?
So there's going to be an investigation into the suspect and the motive. There's going to be an investigation into whether anyone else was involved. And there has to be an investigation into the security breaches and how they happened, because, this can't keep happening.
And again, you were at the Hilton earlier this evening. What did you see?
So what I saw was a scene where there were a lot of protesters outside, and there were people who were asking for tickets in order for you to go into the hotel. But I did see in the lobby of the hotel some protesters got in.
And was anyone corralling them, or were they kind of free to move around?
So I only saw two, and they were in the upper level. So the ballroom is 2 levels down, and the protesters who got in were on the upper level red carpet, which is not where any of the administration officials would be. They would be brought in through the back. But, attendees of the dinner were having their picture taken there. And the 2 protesters went up there. They had a sign saying, "Arrest Pete Hegseth."
Now, I want to go back to what our friend Mike Dubke suggested a little bit earlier, former Trump administration person, saying, why not set up a tent on the South Lawn and have the dinner there? All the security protocols are in place, et cetera, et cetera. As a journalist, an independent journalist, what's your reaction to the White House hosting the White House Correspondents Dinner?
So it's the White House Correspondents Dinner, and it is at its heart about the press and about the reporters who cover the president. It is about the president to some extent, but it is really a celebration of the First Amendment. So, to take the dinner for the White House Correspondents Association to remove the dinner from their hands and put it in the hands of planners at the White House, I think would be unusual.
Now we're getting some more social media video. This is from Notice. News of the United States is their media organization. Let's listen and watch. And under the tables,
I would point out
went.
a couple of things. One, C-SPAN was the one camera. As I understand it, they're the one camera that's officially allowed to be at this.
The so-called pool.
The pool for this event. And unfortunately, most of these media organizations do not invite their camera crews to the dinner. So you're seeing a lot of camera angles on cell phones by individuals who don't do this for a living. They're used to being in front of the camera and not behind the camera. So your C-SPAN's going to have the best coverage of this, I think.
Yeah, my guess is that be part of the investigation, all that footage.
Absolutely.
Austin is in Worden, Montana, Republican line. Hi, Austin.
Hi, good afternoon, panel.
We're listening.
My question for the panel is, how come the government doesn't do a case study on my great state of Montana? I want to say
we're going to just leave our friend in Montana to his own opinions on whatever he was talking about. Holly in Zionsville, Indiana, Democrat. Holly, you're on C-SPAN now. What do you think about what's happening tonight?
Well, I don't know why I'm concerned, but I may be, I'm a very normal mother of three, Midwestern. I'm a registered Republican, but I voted Democrat the last time. And I just want to say the fact that there was a mentalist there who we've never had before, and it was because, according to the people that were interviewed early, the president doesn't take jokes very well. And so obviously, when they planned this, they knew what kind of temperament he had. And I just think this whole scenario looks a little bit like it just doesn't ring true to me. I mean, I don't want to be a conspiracy theorist or crazy person, but I just feel like the protocols were off. The president wasn't immediately evacuated. The seal was left. The correspondents were left. And the president was the one that first made the response on his social media post about wanting to continue, wanting to give his speech, wanting to, and just none of this seems
so. What
normal.
Draw this to a conclusion. What do you mean it doesn't seem normal? Just you get one statement now.
Okay, if this was the plan to have this be interrupted in some dramatic fashion to draw our attention by this mentalist in agreement with the president or the White House, I think that's really awful.
All right, Holly in Zionsville, Indiana, as she says, a Midwestern normal mother. What do you think about her thought process?
The way that this all went down after the fact seemed very normal to me in terms of how the Secret Service reacted, and given that it was probably 2 floors away and it wasn't a direct threat in the room, they quickly assessed that. I'm not sure I'm there. In terms of the entertainment, I mean, the entertainment, and you would be better to speak to this than I am, but through the years, the entertainment has changed at the White House, at this Correspondents' Dinner. I think we're used to the over-the-top comedians of the past several years, but that didn't always used to be the case, is my understanding.
Well, so also the entertainer for the evening, Oz Perlman, was chosen before it was clear whether the president would be attending or not. Yeah. And the other thing I want to clarify about Oz Perlman, as I when that was announced, I wasn't familiar with what a mentalist is. And, when I heard it was magic, I thought it would be magic tricks. And, he is somebody who is very, very entertaining. I actually happened to hear him on the Joe Rogan show. What he does is different from what a comedian does, but it's that same sense of a person with an act, and you don't know exactly what's going to happen or how it's going to play out, and that there's similarities between that and comedy. My understanding was that he was going to read the president's mind live, that would have been...
It looks like he was doing that when they were doing something with the Trumps there, and that's when Ouija was like, wow, that was amazing. I mean, that's what I saw in the video.
Exactly. And, I do want to clarify that Oz Perlman himself, when he describes what a mentalist is, he says, I have no magical powers. I figure out. You give me clues, and I can figure out what you're thinking. And, he really rattled Joe Rogan by guessing correctly his PIN number, his ATM PIN number. Yeah.
Wow. And I guess he was on Bret Baier Fox News last night and guessed his best friend. So I don't know how this works or if it's set up in any way, but that was going to be very entertaining. We're looking forward to covering it. We had cameras on the floor with him and microphones so we could catch all of the action as we went. Karen Bohan, when you were chair in 2012, your entertainment, your speaker, your president was Barack Obama, and your entertainment?
Jimmy Kimmel.
And how did he do? Did he cross the edge in your view? I mean, how did you work with him?
So when we started speaking with him, it was the summer before the April dinner. I think this is true for all presidents of the Correspondents Association, is we want comedians who are going to make fun of everybody. That includes Republicans, Democrats, and us. We actually told him that. I mean, Jimmy Kimmel is not somebody who would say, oh, okay, you don't want me to make fun of this person, so I won't. So, that conversation wouldn't happen that way. But, I do remember talking to his people about, what he was going to say. And he said that, he would be very much making fun of the press. And, my reaction was, that is perfect for this room because, people get that. They live in that world.
We're going to show you two contrasting pictures. The Washington Hilton live. You can see even the tablecloths have been removed from the tables. That staff, they are a machine. They know exactly what they're doing, and they work fast and hard at the Washington Hilton. And then, mile and a half away at the White House, here is the press room, and they are starting to get ready for the president's press conference. You can see the seal is up on the podium there, and they're getting ready. And that's pretty. Look at the crowd in there too. You can see all the heads of the people who are in there. That looks like a potential tuxedo with a long tie there that gentleman's wearing. I wonder if we're going to see some evening clothes.
That's Amr Madani of the Associated Press, and he was one of the reporters who was going to be honored with an award for his reporting.
So that is the tux with the black tie, the long tie.
Yeah.
Okay, Speaker Mike Johnson. Kelly and I were at the event tonight, and we're thankful no innocent people were harmed and everyone is now safe. We're grateful as always for the law enforcement and first responders who acted so quickly to bring the situation under control, praying for our country tonight. Now, I think it was John McCardle, our colleague here at C-SPAN, who reported that Speaker Mike Johnson was there, and he and his wife Kelly, and that they escorted him out but left her under the table.
Yeah.
And that's protocol.
That's protocol, and it's going to lead to probably a terrible argument later tonight in the Johnson household. But it is protocol, yes.
Yeah. Okay. Let's talk to Cade in Travelers Rest South. Nope, Cade is gone now. Let's check in with Louie in Lincoln, Nebraska, Democrat. Hi, Louie. Thanks for holding. Please go ahead.
Yes. I feel like this is a derivative of bringing Hollywood to Washington, D.C. It's a wag the dog situation. Trump did not want to be at the correspondents' dinner. He does not like free media. And he's going to find ways through Hollywood to create situations where it's going to leave us Americans scratching our heads on what's going on. Now he has every reason to have a ballroom.
Okay, let's check in with Mike Dubke, who used to work for President Trump as his communications director, on all three of the points that you raised. Well, number one, President Trump did not want to be at the dinner.
I think that's absolutely untrue. I frankly was very surprised he went to the dinner because I thought he was going to be consistent through the rest of his presidency of not attending this dinner.
Number two, he doesn't like the media, the free media.
He loves free media. One would argue that it was the earned media that he got in 2015, 2016 when he was running for president that helped him through the Republican primaries and launched him into the presidency. Donald Trump has been part of the media industrial complex, if you want to call it that, from a very, very young age. We were having a conversation in the green room before we came out about how this dinner has what was Louis's point?
Louis.
That this dinner has become a little bit more Hollywood. But Donald Trump, before he was president, attended this dinner multiple times as a guest of media companies. So,
third point, this is wag the dog. Now Donald Trump can have his ballroom because it's not secure anyplace else.
I think Donald Trump secured that ballroom long before this White House Correspondents' Dinner in the way that only he can. But,
and you know, Karen Bohan, we were replaying some of the old correspondence speeches, the president speaking at the Correspondents' Dinner on C-SPAN 2 all day long, and I watch them over and over. And in 2016, Barack Obama made a point of in his remarks. He goes, "What is wrong with you people in the media? All you do is cover Donald Trump." Basically, is what he said. He said it in a very amusing way. But do you remember the first? In 2016, when Donald Trump was running for president, I remember going through the newspapers one day, and there were 30 articles on Donald Trump. Mm-hmm. What was it about him that attracted that attention?
It was his ability to get free media from the press. I mean, if you think about it, looking back to 2015, when he was running in the primary against Jeb Bush and Marco Rubio, they raised so much more money than him, and he ended up not needing the money initially.
Exactly right.
I mean, he did eventually sell the T-shirts and the hats, but he was far out fundraised, and he was ubiquitous though, because he would say controversial things. Everybody would be talking about what he said.
Mike Dubke, were you working on the campaign at the time?
I was not working on the campaign. I came to the administration not from the RNC or the campaign. I was a stepchild that arrived at the White House. But one of the things that we did at very early days at the White House was we discovered and learned that the fastest way for us to get our message out was not a press release, but we would have the president tweet, and it would go breaking news on CNN. Your leader here at C-SPAN now was my nemesis at CNN at the time, Sam Feist. But it was very easy for us, and Sam will hate me saying this, it was very easy for us to get a headline on CNN or any of the other networks, frankly, because when the president tweeted out, the earned media, the media treated that as breaking news. So that was the way we conveyed things.
And Karen Bohan, if you didn't report on some of those tweets, did you feel left behind?
Well, so, every time he tweeted, it wasn't necessarily news, but as Mike points out, it would get our attention much more. And one thing that, I was observing and that I mentioned to Mike in the green room is that we need so many more reporters on beats to cover this White House than was the case during other administrations. Some news organizations have doubled the size of their White House teams.
And you can see the Jim Brady press room right now at the White House is full. I'm trying to see how much evening clothes. There's Caitlin Collins in a evening dress for CNN. You can see her up at the front doing her stand-up. I see another bow tie up there in the front. This should begin momentarily, it sounds like. In the meantime, Senator Deb Fischer, Republican of Nebraska, was at the dinner, and she had sent out this tweet following after she was able to leave the dinner. It's gone, but she was just thanking the Secret Service and everybody for the help that they provided. But so I apologize for not showing you that tweet at the same time. Peter in Hancock, Maine, Independent Line.
Oh, hi there. Thanks for letting me talk. So I want to say I'm very grateful to law enforcement that all 2,000 journalists, including your own C-SPAN reporters, are safe and the shooter was apprehended. The press has been called fake news and often ridiculed by the current occupant of the White House. And I, for one, am glad all the journalists are safe. And I appreciate that you guys regularly put your lives on the front line of reporting every day. So thank you for doing that.
That's Peter in Hancock, Maine. Who came up with the phrase fake news? Was that a Donald Trumpism?
He made it famous. There were bumper stickers back when George Herbert Walker Bush. It was don't blame me.
Ignore the media.
Ignore the media.
Vote for Bush.
Yeah.
Something like
don't
that,
blame me. I voted for Bush.
Yeah.
This has been an ongoing kind of push and pull, especially with Republican candidates and Republican presidents, for years and years and years. So it wasn't invented by Donald Trump. He's very adept at coming up with quick sayings that's probably given him. But he's also probably the person that's benefited the most from the press, as we were just discussing before.
Karen Bohan, when you hear the term fake news directed at you or your organizations, what's your instinct?
So, I mean, I think that it comes from a place of not liking to be criticized or having any negative stories about your administration. And in that respect, I mean, other presidents did not use that phrase, but other administrations were often furious at the press, and that is a constant.
It is now 10:25 p.m., about 2 hours ago, is when the incident at the Washington Hilton happened. We have had two guests here all evening, and we appreciate this so much that you're sticking around with us. Karen Bohan, former editor-in-chief of USA Today. Mike Dubke, former communications director in the first Trump term. And you guys came over here to talk about the White House Correspondents Dinner, and we started off strong that way, I think. And we have just transitioned into what is happening tonight. So, and we're hearing your voices about what's happening. It looks like the press conference will be starting shortly. Of course, that'll all be live on C-SPAN. But in the meantime, let's hear from Rose in Delaware, Ohio, Republican line. Go ahead, Rose.
Thank you so much. I apologize for my voice dysphonia, but I went to Afghanistan as a DOD accountant, no military involvement, or experience. And the news being played over there, I was a little bit shocked that, and growing up with only, 3 choices or channels to choose your news from, you don't realize how much that has changed over the course of time with all the addition of all these new channels, and especially all the news channels. But I was on 4 different bases, but when in Kabul, I was there for the bin Laden ordeal, hearing the streets are hot, could possibly turn hot on us. But I'd watch the news at mealtime, and it was amazing. Al Jazeera, it's amazing how they were not trying to persuade. They just delivered the news. And it was incredible it took you to a higher level of knowledge. It was, I miss it incredibly.
Rose, we're going to leave it there. Mike Dubke is somebody who had to deal with the media at the White House Communications Office. Would you agree with the statement that all news organizations are trying to be uplifting and report the news?
No. Not at all.
No hesitation there.
No hesitation at all. No, look, there are very high quality reporters, and probably 90% of the reporters that I dealt with were of that ilk. There were some that weren't, and even the reporters that were in the White House would agree with me, wink, nod, yeah, we know, and I'm not going to name names tonight. That having been said, when you're in the White House, the diversification of the different mediums that are there, that's what allows me to say that.
All right, we've got less than 2 minutes. A 2-minute warning was given at the White House at the press conference about to begin. But Karen Bohan, if you had to call and you wanted to do an interview with President Trump and you talked to Mike over here, how would you approach that?
So I immediately would ask him, how he felt in the moment and what happened, and I want to know more about what transpired between the time he was thrown to the ground and, when the decision was made that he would go to the White House to make this statement.
And there's going to be all sorts of hands raised at this press conference. How long do you think the president will
I think
go?
this might go for a while. I think he's going to probably only call on people in tuxedos and full gowns. I think he will make a point of the fact that they went through this ordeal together. And he's not, he might deliver one of the jokes he was going to deliver tonight, but I think this is going to be a serious speech, but one with, a tinge of humor, if that could be possible.
It looks like they are ready to open the door. Where does that door go to? Does it go to the press room?
It goes to lower press, what's called lower press, and it's just outside. It's the press room is actually built on a swimming pool.
Right, and you can access that right from the outside, from the patio, right?
Well, yes, there's another door there, but that door right there goes to a smaller area where the press secretary's staff is, and then that goes up to upper press, which is where the press secretary's office is and others.
Karen Bohan, have you walked back through that door and accessed the lower press, as they call it?
Many, many times. Although the access to it has changed in the Trump administration. You're not allowed to wander back and just talk to a press
In previous
aide.
administrations, though, you could?
Yes, you could.
Well, only to upper press, to be very clear about that. So in previous
lower press. Yeah.
Oh, yes. You'd go through
press.
lower press, and then when I was there in 2017, the reporters were still coming up to upper press.
Yeah.
I wanted I'm going to date myself in Les Nessman fashion, put a piece of tape on the floor that would stop them at one point just past the press secretary's office. But yes, it was very difficult to get work done when you had reporters just standing outside your door. It was, but they had a job to do, and so did we.
And I tell you what, we're going to be cutting out of here very quickly as soon as the president or Carolyn Levitt, who was she at the dinner tonight?
She was at the dinner.
She was at the dinner, wasn't she? And
she was photographed on the red carpet,
ready to have a child.
I think today was her last day. Yes.
Yeah, and so whether she's there tonight or the president or the vice president, we'll find out. But once they come out that door, we're going to cut to it. And so I want to make sure to thank you, Karen Bohan, former editor-in-chief of USA Today. What are you doing these days, and can people still read your writing?
Well, so I will be posting on Substack in the near future, but I'm also doing some teaching and consulting, so yeah.
And what will you be reporting on tonight? I know you were stuck here in the studio with us. Look, we all saw it together. We all reacted together. So
I have to say that if I were in the room, I would have been taking pictures. I would have been reporting. I would have been digging to try to get the information.
My guess is there's a lot out there on social media right now, and Mike Dubke, what you said you have a PR firm now since
I
Trump
had a public
administration?
affairs firm, and here we go. But I had a public affairs firm before I went in the White House, and I've gone back there.
Is that the president's official photographer there? Who just walked out? That woman who
it's
just
one of them. Yes, I'm sure they were taking pictures back as he's making his way from the Oval Office to lower press.
How far is it from the Oval Office?
It's not very far. You can traverse it outside, where I think you've seen the outside, the Oval Office. You can make it outside in a covered walkway.
Okay, all right. We're just waiting for him to come out, and then we will go to that. We want to thank everybody who has been with us this evening. We have been now on the air for 3.5 hours. We started out talking about the White House Correspondents' Dinner and some lighter things. And here he comes. Here comes the president.
Well, thank you very much. That was very unexpected, but incredibly acted upon by Secret Service and law enforcement. And this was an event dedicated to freedom of speech that was supposed to bring together members of both parties with members of the press. And in a certain way it did, because the fact that they just unified, I saw a room that was just totally unified. It was in one way very beautiful, a very beautiful thing to see. A man charged a security checkpoint armed with multiple weapons, and he was taken down by some very brave members of Secret Service, and they acted very quickly and have just released, for purposes of transparency, clarity, I've ordered it to be put out. You probably have it by now, put out on Truth and put out on many other platforms. A tape showing the violence of this thug that attacked our Constitution, and also showing how quickly Secret Service and law enforcement acted on our country's behalf. Really did a great job. One officer was shot, but saved by the fact that he was wearing obviously a very good bulletproof vest. He was shot from very close distance with a very powerful gun, and the vest did the job. I just spoke to the officer, and he's doing great. He's in great shape. He is has very high spirits, and we told him we love him and respect him, and he's a very proud guy. He's very proud of what he does, Secret Service agent. And we looked at all of the conditions that took place tonight, and I will say, you know, it's not a particularly secure building, and I didn't want to say this, but this is why we have to have all of the attributes of what we're planning at the White House. It's actually a larger room, and it's much more secure. It's drone-proof, it's bulletproof glass. We need the ballroom. That's why Secret Service, that's why the military are demanding it. They've wanted the ballroom for 150 years for lots of different reasons, but today's a little bit different, because today we need levels of security that probably nobody's ever seen before. But everyone owes a tremendous debt of gratitude to the courage of law enforcement, the law enforcement, and working with the D.C. police, and we just spoke with the mayor. And when we're finished, the police chief is going to take over and discuss it also from their viewpoint. But they also performed exactly as they were supposed to, and you see the attacker in different positions, but you also see the attacker totally subdued and under control. So as you know, this is not the first time in the past couple of years that our republic has been attacked by a would-be assassin who sought to kill. In Butler, Pennsylvania, less than 2 years ago, you all know that story, and in Palm Beach, Florida, a few months after that, we came close. We really had, again, we had some great work done by law enforcement. But in light of this evening's events, I ask that all Americans recommit with their hearts in resolving our difference peacefully. We have to resolve our differences. I will say, you had Republicans, Democrats, independents, conservatives, liberals, and progressives Those words are interchangeable, perhaps, but maybe they're not. But yet everybody in that room, big crowd, record-setting crowd. There was a record-setting group of people, and there was a tremendous amount of love and coming together. I watched, and I was very, very impressed by that. But First Lady and I were taken very well care of, very quickly rushed off the stage. Vice President J.D. Vance, who's here, was likewise beautifully done. He was just saying how quickly everybody acted, law enforcement, Secret Service in particular in this case, but law enforcement. Marco had the same thing. Pete was there. Pete didn't want any help. He didn't want anybody to help him. He doesn't want anybody to help him, but he did get some, didn't you? And I think you also said that it was very impressive. So with that, I'd like to ask Todd Blanche to come up, say a few words, and tell you it's already underway. The man has been captured. They're going to his apartment. I guess he lives in California, and he's a sick person, a very sick person. And we don't want things like this to happen. I think it's very important that I say, though, and I told the representatives of the evening, they did such a beautiful job. It was such a beautiful evening. And again, they're talking about free speech in our Constitution. That's what it's all about, not just White House correspondents. It was really based on free speech in our Constitution. But I said very importantly that we'll do it again within the next 30 days, and we'll make it bigger and better and even nicer. So I just want to thank everybody that was involved. I also want to thank the press, the media. You've been very responsible in your coverage. I will say I've been seeing what's been out, and you've been very responsible. So Todd Blanche, I'd like to say a few words, and then we're going to have cash. And then you're going to go on. We can ask, I guess we can take a couple of questions. I want to thank the First Lady that was a rather traumatic experience for her. There was a lot of action taking place up there very quickly. But again, the response time was really incredible. And we're going to reschedule. We're going to do it again. We're not going to let anybody take over our society. We're not going to cancel things out because we can't do that. We wanted to stay tonight. I will tell you, I fought like hell to stay. But it was protocol. They said, please, sir, because they didn't know there was a lot of action going on, and they didn't know could there be probably a lone shooter, but we'll find out. We'll find out very quickly. They have it very well under control. So I want to thank everybody very much. And Todd Blanche, please.
Thank you very much, Mr. President. Tonight you saw the very worst and the very best of this country. You saw the very worst by the actions of that coward that the President just talked about. But you also saw the very best because you saw law enforcement do exactly what they're supposed to do. And you'll see the videos come out, I expect, very shortly, and you'll see law enforcement do exactly what we want them to do. And so I echo what President Trump just said, that we are extraordinarily grateful and appreciative of the men and women of law enforcement that did their jobs tonight, including one who was injured. This investigation is ongoing. I expect you will see charges filed shortly. The charges should be self-evident, given the conduct, but as you'll hear, there will be multiple charges surrounding the shooting, around the possession of firearms, and anything else that we can get on this guy. The investigation is obviously ongoing and just started. There's federal law enforcement already working on search warrants and doing their job, and I don't want to get ahead of them and don't want to get ahead of the work that they're doing even as we speak. Director Patel and I were just on the crime scene a short while ago, and everybody in this room should rest assured that the Metropolitan Police Department, the FBI, Secret Service, everybody's on the scene doing their job. I know that the police chief is going to give an update from the scene as soon as we're finished here, and I obviously will leave the details of what they have learned to him. But in the meantime, I just want to thank everybody in this room for the courage. And I want to thank President Trump for his words, and I promise you, justice will be served. Thank you. Director Patel.
Thank you, General. Thank you, Mr. President. The President's absolutely right.
You saw the best resolve of American law enforcement because you, Mr. President, inspire them 24/7, 365. You give them the resources that they need, and they know that you have their back. And that is a changing dynamic in this country, and that's why you saw brave Secret Service agents respond immediately, swiftly, subdue and take down the suspect, and safeguard the lives of thousands of individuals at that hotel. Thanks to our interagency partnership with the Department of Homeland Security and the Metropolitan Police Department, the FBI was rapidly deployed onto the scene, took over the evidence response unit, is examining all the ballistics that were found on scene to include the long gun and the shell casings. We are conducting witness interviews as we speak. You will hear from our team on the scene there with the mayor and the head of the FBI field division there. But please know what the Attorney General has just said reigns no truer. You saw the very best of America tonight. The very best unite us at a time of uncertainty, because we have leadership here with the President and the Vice President that backs law enforcement, and the men and women that I shook their hands on the scene today could not have been prouder to show up on scene. And as the Attorney General said, make no mistake, we are conducting witness interviews. If you have any information whatsoever related to this event, 1-800-CALL-FBI, 1-800-CALL-FBI. No piece of information is too small. No piece of information is inadequate. We will evaluate it all. We will also be conducting interviews of those that were there. And if any of those individuals have information, please come forward to law enforcement or the FBI or the Metropolitan Police Department. We will be examining this individual's background thoroughly. That process has already started. And we are going to ensure that he was either a lone wolf actor or anyone else that was responsible. We will analyze all evidence immediately to make sure that we safeguard this country. Mr. President, Mr. Vice President, thank you for your leadership. Attorney General and Homeland Secretary Merlin, thank you for your partnership in law enforcement.
Thank you, Ken. Okay, we'll do a couple and then we go to the chair. Madam Chairman, I just want to say you did a fantastic job. What a beautiful evening, and we're going to reschedule. Okay. And after that, it's very tough for her to ask a killer question, right? But you have done a fantastic job. Please.
Mr. President, I appreciate it. As you mentioned, it all happened so quickly. Yeah. And I wonder, especially because unfortunately you have experience with these sorts of threats, in that moment when you realized there was a threat and service agents were telling us to get down, can you describe what was going through your mind, how you were feeling in that moment?
That's a very good question, actually. It's always shocking when something like this happens. It's happened to me a little bit, and that never changes. The fact, we were sitting right next to each other, the First Lady on my right, and I heard a noise and sort of thought it was a tray. I thought it was a tray going down. I've heard that many times, and it was a pretty loud noise. And it was from quite far away. He hadn't breached the area at all. They really got him. But so it was quite far away, but it was a gun. And some people really understood that pretty quickly. Other people didn't. I was watching to see what was happening. Probably should have gone down even faster. Melania was very cognizant, I think, of what happened. I think she knew immediately what happened. She was saying, that's a bad noise. And we were whisked away along with other people, but we were really whisked away. And again, the performance of the Secret Service and the police, all of the law enforcement, I thought was really good. So it was very quick. There wasn't a lot of time to be thinking, because it was a matter of seconds before we were out the door and gone into an area. We very much, and you wanted to too, we very much wanted to continue it, because I don't like to let these sick people, these thugs, these horrible, horrible people, change the fabric of our life, change the course of what we do. So we held out. You were there. We held out right till the end, but they didn't want to take a chance, and I understand it was protocol. But we're going to be doing one hopefully within the next 30 days or sooner, and I am ready, willing, and able. And I was all set to really rip it. And I said to my people, this would be the most inappropriate speech ever made if I said one. So I'll have to save it. I don't know if I could ever be as rough as I was going to be tonight. I think I'm going to be probably very nice. I'll be very boring the next time, but we're going to have a great event. And you did a fantastic job. Thank you very much. Peter, go ahead.
Thank you, President Trump. There's a report in the New York Post that this assailant assembled his weapon somewhere on site at the hotel. What do you think about that? And I ask respectfully, Why do you think this keeps happening to you?
Well, you know, I've studied assassinations, and I must tell you, the most impactful people, the people that do the most, you take a look at the people, Abraham Lincoln, I mean, you go through the people that have gone through this where they got them. But the people that do the most, the people that make the biggest impact, they're the ones that they go after. They don't go after the ones that don't do much because they like it that way. And when you look at the people that have either, whether it was an attempt or a successful attempt, they're very impactful people. Just take a look at the names there, the big names. And I hate to say I'm honored by that, but I've done a lot. We've done a lot. We've taken this country, and we were a laughing stock for years, and now we're the hottest country anywhere in the world. We've changed this country, and there are a lot of people that are not happy about that. So I think that's the answer, Peter.
And after Butler, your team for a while rethought outdoor events.
Yeah.
Do you think that you now need to rethink
No.
indoor?
Well, but then you just don't do events. No, I can't do that. I have to. It is what it is. We have to do it. The room was very, very secure. You know, he charged from 50 yards away, so he was very far away from the room.
And what did you think when you saw the video of how fast he was running?
He was moving. He was really moving. And the reaction time was great. Boy, those guys, they had their guns drawn literally by the time he was there. They were shooting.
That's right.
I thought they were very impressive. And if I didn't, I'd let you know. You know, I'm not going to be... I would not stand for that. No, I thought they were very impressive.
President Trump, thank you, President Trump, and thank you for updating us on the suspect earlier. Were you aware of any threats? Was your team aware of any threats beforehand? And do you believe you were the target of this tonight?
I guess. I mean, these people they're crazy. They're crazy, and you know, you never know. He was very far away from me. He had to go through a lot. We had resources all over. We had resources sitting at tables, literally in disguise, sitting. Maybe at your table, who knows? But we had people all over the room, so he had a long way to go. That was really a first line of defense, and they got him. And they really, you know, they acted incredibly. No, there was no notification. We had no idea. Go ahead, Kevin.
Do you know any political motivations from this?
Well, you never know. Now, we'll be able to tell you that maybe by tomorrow or the next day. You know, he's in custody, and they're asking him a lot of questions. I guess they're going over, Todd, and they're already at his apartment. He lives in California.
Yes, sir.
And they're over there, so they'll be able to tell you. Thank you, Caitlin.
President Trump, did the suspect say anything, or was he wearing anything that would allege some type of motive here?
Nothing. No, I mean, he was a guy who looked pretty evil when he was down. You know, they had him down. He was fighting hard. He was in my opinion, a sick person. Who would do that but a sick person? But I think you're going to find everything about him. No reason to talk about it now. But tomorrow at this time, long before this time, you're going to know a lot of things about him. They seem to think he was a lone wolf, and I feel that too.
Are you concerned about U.S. Secret Service protection ability? We saw several of the detainees take minutes to be escorted out of the room.
No, they acted very quickly. No, I was very impressed by Secret Service. I mean, I'm the one, and Mark Wayne, you would agree with that, I think. Absolutely. I'm the one that would complain. You don't have to complain for me. I would be complaining. I'd be up here right now saying they didn't do their job. Oh, believe me, because, you know, it's my life, and I want to live because I want to make this country great. That's why I want to live. But when you're impactful, they go after you. When you're not impactful, they leave you alone. Okay, a couple of more. Go ahead, please.
Is there any indication that this shooting could have been linked to the war in Iran?
I don't think so, but you never know. We're going to know a lot. We have the best people in the world working on it, and we're going to know a lot. Please.
Mr. President, there's a lot. You, as well as some of us who have covered Butler, experienced 2 years ago.
Yeah.
What felt similar? You know, you had the First Lady with you today. What felt different? And you have another 2+ years in office. Are you concerned about something like this happening
Well, I
again?
can't be concerned. I can only get great people. They did the job, in my opinion, a much better job than Butler. Butler had one weak spot that we all know about. Somebody should have been up there. But even Butler, we had our sniper on our side, within 4.2 seconds from a distance of about 400 yards, one shot, and he was gone. And if he didn't do it, now, you know, he's David. His name was David. I say, hello, David, every time I see him. David, I like you very much, David. But think of that. Now, if he doesn't hit him, and he hit him right between the eyes from 400 yards without any notice, nobody knew. He heard a sound. He looked over, and there was actually a tree that was somewhat in his way. You know the story very well. And he aimed, he fired. And if he didn't do that, beyond me, you would have had a lot more people killed. We lost one great person and two people very badly hurt. They're okay now. But no, that was so. In a sense, you know, that was pretty amazing the job they did. But they did have that one weak spot, as you know. They should have had that covered. Tonight they had everything covered very quickly, and he was fast. He was running full blast, and they got him before they got any further. I was very far away. You know, he hadn't anywhere close to breach the doors of the ballroom. The ballroom was sealed, and everybody in there. That's why once those doors opened, they didn't want to do tonight. If the doors weren't opened, we could have probably done it tonight. But I think we're much better off rescheduling. Yeah, please.
Mr. President, for you and perhaps law enforcement as well, what is the level of confidence that this was a lone actor? And has the suspect made any statements to police while in custody?
Yeah, I think it's just it's not my profession. We have great professionals up here and outside that have been working with us. My impression is he was a lone wolf, whack job. These are crazy people. These are crazy people, and they have to be dealt with. We had that in the second attempt, as you know, and he's spending life in prison. Because if you let him out, they'll probably, you know, if he serves 10 years or 15 years, you let him out, he'll probably try it again with somebody else. They're sick people. We have a lot of sick people. But you're going to know, I think very shortly, you're going to know, Todd, a lot about him. You're going to know a lot about him. Yeah, a couple of more. Yeah, please, go ahead.
Are you concerned about political violence? This could be politically motivated.
All violence. I'm concerned about everything. Look, but I can't be so concerned that you can't function. No, I'm here. It's a dangerous profession. You know, I tell the story. Race car drivers, I think it's very dangerous. So if you take 1% and then take about 10% of 1%, just to break it down very easily, they die. So much less than 1%, 10% of 1%. I think bull riding is very dangerous. If you take about the same, 10% of 1%, much less than 1%. But if you take presidents, it's 5.8%. And about 8% are shot at. So nobody told me this was such a dangerous profession. If Marco would have told me, maybe I wouldn't have run. Maybe I would have said, I'll take a pass. No, it's a dangerous profession, but I don't view it that way. Look, I'm here to do a job. As part of the job, it is a dangerous. I can't imagine that there's any profession that's more dangerous. But I love the country, and I'm very proud. I'm very proud of the job we've done. You see what's happened. We have a great country. We've got, I think, the most successful, the hottest country anywhere in the world. This happened over a period of just a year, and we're going to do great things. But with that come risks. There's no question about it. Yeah.
To that end, I mean, there's been so much political violence, not just aimed at yourself, but at other members of Congress, state house speakers, you name it. Is that just the cost of doing business to do politics in America anymore?
Yeah. Well,
what does that say about our country?
Too. You know, we're not the only country. You look at this great violence with all countries. I was talking to somebody from another country today, and they have numerous assassinations of political figures all over the world. You look at South America, it's like some of the numbers are just horrific. It's dangerous. It's dangerous stuff, whether it's here or someplace else. No country is immune. No country. Good question.
Is it possible to turn that temperature down at this point?
Well, probably if I decided to just not do much, you know, if I let everybody rip us off and take advantage of us. Look, we're leading the world in trade now. We're leading the world in the military. We're the greatest military in the world. I rebuilt it in my first term, and now we use it because we have no choice. We can't let, as an example, Iran We can't let them get a nuclear weapon. Everything will be peanuts compared to that if they ever were given a nuclear weapon, and they'd use it too. Marco and I were talking about it today. They would use it without even hesitation. We can't do that. It was a shame. I said, oh boy, look at the numbers. We just broke 50,000 in the Dow. We just broke 7,000 in the S&P. They said we couldn't do it in 7 years, in 5 years, 4 years. They were saying maybe in 5 or 6 years. And we did it in 1 year. And I called everybody together. I called all of these people and others, and I said, we have to take a little journey. I seek to do this. We just had the great number. We just broke 50,000. Wasn't supposed to happen during my term. Wasn't reachable. We did it in 1 year. And I said, we're going to have to make a journey to Iran. They're going to have a nuclear weapon if we don't do it. We had the B-2 bombers take them out. I terminated in the first term the Obama agreement, the Iran nuclear agreement, which was a disaster. That was a road to a nuclear weapon. They would have used it. They would have used it 100%. So, you know, when you do things like that, you become a target. If I wasn't doing that, I guess I'd be a lot less of a target. But I'm honored to be. Okay, one more question. Go ahead. Yeah, go ahead.
Thank you, President Trump. Thank you, President Trump. Do you know how the gun was brought into the hotel? And also, how does this event impact you as the leader of our country? Do you think it will change your
I
leadership?
like not to think about it. I lead a pretty normal life, considering, you know, it's a dangerous life. I think I handle it as well as it can be handled. I think a lot of other people, you know, you read stories where they become basket cases. To be honest with you, I'm not a basket case. I really take it as it is. I do it for the country. I'm not doing it for any other reason. I have a first lady who's doing a terrific job. She loves the country, and she recognizes it better than anybody. She's told me numerous times. She said, you are in a dangerous job. But that goes along with her, too. I mean, it's dangerous for her, too. We sat there tonight. We heard that noise, and it was either a tray or a bullet. I was hoping it was a tray, but it wasn't. And again, we had some very brave people doing a great job, so we're very proud of them and happy with them. I just want to thank everybody. They will be able to give you all that information as to the names and everything else. I think we released the names already. Most of you would have it, but his name. We appreciate it. I see so many tuxedos and beautiful dresses. It was a little different evening than we thought, but we're going to do it again, and we have a great chairman who we're so proud of, and we have to make it better. We'll make it safer, I guess, right? But we're going to make it even better. Okay, thank you very much. Thank you.
President Trump, can we hear from about how impactful this was? Can we hear from her about?
Well, honey, would you want to say something?
Okay.
One in the back. One in the back,
Right. Millions of people across the globe, in fact, are watching you. You demonstrated courageous leadership, and thank God you're alive. All of us are alive today. What is the message that you want to give to the world that this should change? What corrective measures can we take from here on?
Well, all you can do, look, I don't care how many people you have, how good they are. They can be the greatest people. You have the greatest security in history. If you have a whack job who's got a brain, but it's a little bit distorted or a lot distorted, they can make trouble. I would say, Pete, right? You know, they can make trouble. Some of these people are of genius level IQ, and they're nuts. So it can be trouble. So you do absolutely the best. You get the best. We have the best people. Well, look, it was proven tonight. He started running from 50 yards, and he was fast. He was like a blur on tape. He was moving. It was very impressive the way they got him, because a lot of people would be looking and saying, you know, it's like a weird feeling, and they would let him get through, but they didn't let him get through. They drew those guns so fast. They looked like Matt Dillon. They looked like somebody that knew what they were doing, and we really do. But it comes with the territory. And if you want to do a great job, I really believe that. And you take a look at what's happened to some of our greatest presidents, and it doesn't happen to people that don't do anything. And it's not going to deter me from winning the war in Iran. I don't know if that had anything to do with it. I really don't think so, based on what we know. But We're going to continue to do a great job. That's all I can do. Thank you very much. I'll see you tomorrow. Thank you. Thank you.
Thanks, President Trump. Thank you. Glad you're okay.